Bermuda Alliance administration. Like the current government, they also knocked on a few doors with the hope of enticing new banks to join us here in Bermuda. In fact, as the team in the Ministry of Finance can affirm, it's very difficult to capture the attention of global banks and blue chip banks to come to and operate from Bermuda. We don't have the scale, we don't have the air capacity, we are not competitive when it comes to human capital, when it comes to cost and availability. Furthermore, we are challenged with expensive IT and communications costs and the high cost of real estate. We are also inhibited because we are known as one of the most expensive jurisdictions in the world, and there was little confidence that they can get a good return on their investment in capital. Mr. Speaker, as previously stated, a Bermuda digital bank should not be advanced and developed by the Bermuda government. The government can set the environment which can bring it to fruition, but it should not be involved in its ownership or operations. This should be left for the development by the private sector players and initiatives. Mr. Speaker, with the advancement of crypto economies and the digital assets and the digital banks, we should expect a new level of risk to the government's asset portfolio, which will compromise Bermuda's sovereign debt ratings and our ability to raise financing in the global capital markets at affordable prices. And I say at affordable prices. Here it should also be noted that the vision of the banking sector presented is not a picture of something new and different. It's a mere reflection of the status quo, with some questionable additions around specialized international banks. Narrow purpose banks. These restricted licenses already exist under Schedule 3 of the Bank and Deposit Companies Act of 1999, and not one has ever materialized and nor does there seem to be any appetite for them, because they cannot get correspondent bank services for the class of businesses that these banks are targeting. And this class of business include gaming and cannabis. It is also the same root problem. It's a matter of trust. B, when it comes to credit unions, perhaps the government should direct some of its resources via the BMA towards shoring up the solvency of one of our existing credit unions on the island. C, specialized banks. I wonder what possible reason these banks would have for wanting to come to our shores if they aren't focused on domestic consumer or businesses. What value will they bring if promises have been made? How will those promises impact Mr. and Mrs. Bermuda? Mr. Speaker, regarding the Bermuda Commercial Bank mortgage guarantee, it is concerning to see that the government is actively undermining competition, whether it be in the courier services or in the banking industry. The sinking fund. Mr. Speaker, for the edification of the public, please know that the sinking fund was set up by law specifically to provide for the retirement of debt. In fact, the original annual contribution was earmarked at 2.5% of the outstanding debt for the expiring fiscal year. It appears that this Minister of Finance made it clear that he will not be hamstrung by this inconvenience. What will be the government's policy going forward? Will the sinking fund contributions be made only in times of planning, or when we have current account surpluses, and when we have borrowed money, more money than we need from the capital markets? Will the suspension of contributions to the sinking fund be permanently on the table, or will the suspension be temporary? How are we going to retire the growing debt that Bermuda faces as a result of the Progressive Labour Party government? Mr. Speaker, for 2023, we should expect to maintain a balance in the sinking fund of $151,068,000, which is down from $348 million in 2021, down from $297 million in 21-22, and down from $245 million down in 22-23. What is causing this downward trend? Why is the PLP government raiding the sinking fund? The answer is simple. The government is raiding the account to pay current account expenditures and capital account expenditures. For the record, the Burt government has not repaid and reduced Bermuda's $3.3 billion gross national debt for a number of years. They are intent on passing the responsibility and burden to our children and grandchildren for generations to come. There is no plan or roadmap to manage or halt the unabated growth of national debt, which is a shameful legacy for the Burt administration. Mr. Speaker, just last year, it went from 245.376 to 151.682, estimated from the upcoming fiscal year. This is a reduction of $93.7 million, or 38%, 38.2%. It is our guess that the $93 million withdrawal is being used to fund the majority of this year's $96 million capital expenditures. Does the CapEx payment fall in line with the original mandate of Bermuda's Sinking Fund? The answer is a definite no. Healthcare. Mr. Speaker, please allow me once again to applaud and thank Bermuda's healthcare workers for the work that they have accomplished over 2 years for the management and mitigation of COVID-19 and the Delta and Omicron variants, which have plagued this island. It's nearly brought the country to its knees economically and medically. Mr. Speaker, where do we stand with Bermuda's Health Strategy 2022-27? The strategy formed the foundation of an inspirational plan which would ensure that all people have equitable access to the needed informative, preventative, and curative, rehabilitative, and palliative essentials for health service of sufficient quality to be effective, while also ensuring that people do not suffer financial hardships when paying for these services and critical medicines. Mr. Speaker, the strategy for this aspirational plan was based on 7 strategic principles: promoting healthy living and preventative care, focusing on person-centered care, understanding our population's health needs, providing access to healthcare coverage, strengthening our healthcare workforce, harnessing healthcare technology, and partnership and collaborative working. Mr. Speaker, we understand that the new National Health Plan will be crafted and finalized through a graduated phase process. When will Bermuda's revised National Health Plan be delivered? How much will the implementation of this plan cost? And how much has been allocated to it for the fiscal year 2023? Mr. Speaker, the One Bermuda Alliance believes that all Bermudians should have access to affordable, high-quality health care. Through true and transparent consultation, the OBA agrees that government must work with all sectors involved in the delivery and financing of health care in Bermuda to reduce the cost of health care, tackle chronic illnesses, and ensure equal access to care. Every Bermudian has the right to health insurance coverage, which is evidence-based and managed by independent professionals and not by the government. The legislation surrounding health care is fragmented, and we recommend that the laws are brought up to date and unified to unified to reduce confusion surrounding our healthcare regulations. Mr. Speaker, we also look forward to receiving this plan as it will address some of the healthcare weaknesses, financial hardships, and healthcare access challenges that presented themselves during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, the supplemental benefit for mental health needs to be regulated and protected to ensure that insureds are being covered at the same level as for medical benefits. Mr. Speaker, all our people need more access to information about their healthcare policies, to have transparency regarding the specifics of their coverage. We also recommend that the PLP government implement a unique patient identifier for everyone in Bermuda. This will ensure that everyone has coverage, reduce duplication of services, and drive down the cost of healthcare for all. It will assist in services being streamlined and produce a true number of those who are uninsured or underinsured to assist in developing solutions to reduce the subset of the population. But, Mr. Speaker, we must do more to tackle the root causes of poor health. So the One Bermuda Alliance recommends that a national fitness program to encourage well-being, sound health, exercise, and healthy diet from primary school throughout life. Mr. Speaker, we would also recommend the introduction of a program that specifically targets non-communicable diseases underpinned with food cost reductions for healthy living. On the method of medical tourism in Bermuda, this initiative is another pipe dream. We take this view because we cannot effectively manage all of the local patients presently presented to our hospital on a timely basis. In fact, patients are waiting up to 5 months for a routine procedure to occur at our hospital. In addition, research has revealed that medical tourism has failed in small town nations. The scale is not there to make such institutions profitable, and the cost of doing business is exorbitant. In addition, securing medical equipment and reasonably priced medical staff are both very challenging. Added hospital beds and structural facilities are also required to make this business work. And finally, we are years behind the curve when developing and promoting this new industry. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the Bermuda Hospital Board and the KEMH, I think it's imperative that we focus on the finances. In 2018, Bermuda Hospital Board changed its funding model. It went from a fee-for-service model to a flat annual grant model. In light of this, BHB receives an annual grant of $322,000 per year. $1 million per year. And generally, this fee is paid directly to BHB from the Standard Health Benefit Fund and the Mutual Reinsurance Fund. Recently, this annual grant has proven to be inadequate, given that the government has had to provide $15 million in additional funding. To make matters worse, I've been advised that this annual funding has not been adequately accounted for, as BHB has not produced audited financial statements since 2018. And today, this entity operates on an overdraft facility to support major operations. Where is the accountability? This is totally unacceptable. How can we increase this annual funding when we have no satisfaction that the funds are adequately applied and accounted for? This truly boggles the mind. This behavior is truly a testament to the poor management and leadership of the organization. I was also told that the annual grant is being used to service the lease, which is in place with Paget Healthcare Partners. Going forward, what additional multi-million top-ups will be required to keep BHP functional and operating to fulfill its lease with Paget Health Care Services. What incentive is there for the hospital to be self-sufficient from an economic perspective? Will they continue to receive handouts going forward? Mr. Speaker, does this sound familiar? It is another public-private partnership, similar to ACORN and the LF Reid International Airport. It is the Progressive Labour Party's version of the OBA's airport deal. As such, we can close the door on the narrative that the Premier continuously espouses, that the airport is a bad deal for Bermuda. Other revenue matters. Mr. Speaker, on other revenue matters, stamp duties were raised. Why would the government increase the stamp duties on mortgages when the government is also encouraging homeowners to transfer their mortgages to banks which offer government-guaranteed mortgages? Applicants and mortgage holders benefit from the reduced interest rate on one hand, and then they take some of the same benefits to apply to increased stamp duties for the mortgage transfer on the other hand. On the matter of increasing fines, this is fines in our courts, what were the adequacy tests for the fine increases? And how were these figures arrived at? How do they compare with other jurisdictions? On the matter of immigration fee increases, the government must tread very lightly, as this will be added to the exorbitant cost of doing business in Bermuda. As previously stated, this is a major irritant to our ABIC and ABIR members. A 52% increase is unconscionable, especially if there's no improvement in value of value for money and no dramatic improvement in the application processing times. In fact, same comments apply to the increases in the Department of Planning fees. Mr. Speaker, housing required to support economic growth. Mr. Speaker, the opposition supports onward urban planning when it comes to ensuring that we have adequate housing for our proposed growing population. Considering this position, we have no problem with allowing approved residential schemes in the city of Hamilton. We take the view that it will bring vibrancy to the city, and also it will provide a great economic boost to restaurants and retailers of the city of Hamilton. Hopefully, it will form an environment which will foster all forms of after-dinner entertainment, which the country sorely lacks. As previously stated, we must ensure that we do not cannibalize other approved residential schemes located in Somerset, St. George's, and Northeast Hamilton. As a former Minister of Environment, I remember approving mixed-use buildings during my tenure, and I'm pleased that this continues. On the matter of housing, the issue is not the number of affordable houses on the island, but access to the number of houses in Bermuda because of Airbnbs. Education. Mr. Speaker, a lot is going on in education in Bermuda, and according to people that we've spoken to, there are varying views on the delivery and quality of education in Bermuda. Be that as it may, we agree with the duty-free exemption in all school uniforms for all school-aged children. This will come as a needed relief for those parents in question. While on education, we note that the budget book shows a 53% increase in professional services and an increase in rentals, which went from $6,000 to $356,000. In fact, the overall estimates for the ministry headquarters increased by 35%, or $1.89 million. It landed at a total of $7.236 million. Sports. Again, Mr. Speaker, there was very little mention of sports in the budget report, and very little on the further development of our young people. It was noted that the Ministry of Youth and Sports had an 11% increased allocation. This, I am sure, will be appreciated by the community. We all know that education and sports provide discipline, self-respect, responsibility, and growth to our young people. They are our futures, and more should have been included in the budget to address their development. Petty requests. Mr. Speaker, during the upcoming fiscal year, the government indicated that they will be introducing a nominal fee for petty requests which are not from private individuals. For requests which are about data that government holds about them. This fee will help to defray the cost to cover the extraordinary amount of research petty requests cost government. In principle, we understand the reasoning supporting this initiative. However, more information is needed to determine who is paying this or who may not apply to it. Will it apply to law firms and lawyers? Will it apply to media outlets like Burn News or the Royal Gazette and others? What will the fee schedule look like? How will the fees operate? Will there be a minimum fee or a maximum fee? It's important that we know, as the Minister of Finance was with the details. Mr. Speaker, we also take the view that fees can be used as a deterrent to arrest the number of petty requests, which in our mind could be used as a true assault on transparency, which is a pillar of democracy. We'll be watching this space very carefully. Sugar taxes. Again, Mr. Speaker, we were pleasantly surprised to see the government's movement on this controversial sugar tax. It reaffirmed the OBA's view that this tax was nothing but a money grab. It was a last-minute scramble to raise revenue for the government during the difficult economic times. It was not used to educate the community on the negative effects of sugar in our diets and diabetes. In fact, during my team's research, we learned that none of these fees were realized by government was used to support the Bermuda Diabetes Association in any way. It was used as a sin tax only. It just did not help Bermudians from a health perspective, and these taxes did not influence our dietary choices. Again, this scale back is an admission of government's failure when it comes to fiscal policies. The arts. Mr. Speaker, given the significant contribution of the arts, culture, and creative sector to Bermuda's economy and to our social fabric, the government should take steps to protect this sector and look for ways to increase public and private investment in the arts in Bermuda. The 4% reduction in allocation to the Department of Culture is disheartening. Philanthropic sector. Mr. Speaker, in recognition of its importance, role in building and supporting Bermuda's social fabric, the One Bermuda Alliance believes that the government should take action to protect the capacity and financial sustainability of the third sector. We should examine the scope for long-term funding arrangements for social services which support our families, our seniors, and the development of young people. There should be new initiatives to incentivize private investments in this section. In addition, we should also ensure that immigration's economic investment certificates are adjusted so that contributions to the charitable sector can also be applied against individual investment certificate programs. In addition, somehow we should also work to ensure that such donations are tax deductible. Looking forward, Mr. Speaker, how would the One Bermuda Alliance turn this economy around? How would the One Bermuda Alliance turn this economy around? Mr. Speaker, the One Bermuda Alliance would implement the following. We would develop a glide path to balance the budget within 3 years and reduce the recurring current account deficit and ultimately our current national debt level. We would reduce the size of government through offering early retirement and through attrition, as human resource cost is approximately 40% plus of the current account expenditures. Would apply more due diligence and provide better management to recover the millions of dollars owed to the government in its accounts receivables with the assistance previously offered by our IB sector. We would also expand the workforce by relaxing immigration policies so that it's easier for job creators, executives, entrepreneurs, and high net worth individuals to migrate to Bermuda and thereby create jobs. We would reintroduce the travel authorization fees, and I'm just saying fees, not the application forms, just fees, which can be embedded in ticket costs and collected on arrival in Bermuda. We would also examine the possibility of introducing a minimum VAT tax on Bermuda's healthcare services. During these challenging times and the high cost of living, we would also suspend Bermuda's foreign currency purchase tax. The problem with this tax is that it increases the cost of all the goods and services that Bermuda imports from abroad. It is excessively regressive, and it has a multiplier effect, which means that the relatively small revenue it produces for government might lead the average person to think that its impact is small. As an example, if we consider the cost of Belco's fuel and it's increased by the amount of the foreign currency purchase tax, and that means the cost of electricity will be increased, not just by the foreign currency tax, but by the multiple of Belco's profit margin. The same applies to our supermarkets and a reduction in our food costs. Mr. Speaker, we would reiterate and reinstate our Economic Development Committee or Council, made up by global C-suite CEOs from IB, the government, and other stakeholders. The mandate would be to develop a true economic recovery plan which will benefit Bermuda's economy and Bermuda's corporate citizens, be they local or international. We would provide additional resources to the Bermuda College and the Department of Workforce Development to train and retool our students and employees for new created jobs in the private and public sector. We would reassess sin taxes on cigarettes and spirits. We would provide resources to the agricultural and fishing industries to entice job creation and help food security. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the reports and recommendations produced by the Fiscal Responsibility Panel and the Tax Reform Commission, with the feedback from the public and the international business sector, the One Bermuda Alliance would also examine, define, and implement the most equitable, fair, efficient, and transparent tax system to serve the needs and people of Bermuda today and into the future, and not a structure which was crafted to serve the needs of Bermuda's past and its legacy. Mr. Speaker, we would also consider the G20 OECD Global Tax Initiative, which addresses domestic tax-based erosion and profit shifting to multinational enterprises to end tax avoidance and to end tax avoidance. We'd also make commercial and residential construction costs more affordable. Immediate attention would be given to updating Bermuda's 2014 residential code book, which is a couple of cycles overdue. In addition, the same would apply to Bermuda's commercial building code to ensure that it adheres to the International Building Code standards and protocols. These reviews should not be reviewed by the should not only be reviewed by the Architectural Board, but also by a newly formed Electrical Engineering Board who represents the electrical engineering sector. Conclusion. The One Bermuda Alliance assessment of the 2023-24 budget is a reconfiguration that the Premier and his government are living in a Bermuda which is not in tune with the rest of Bermuda. He and his associates are living the high life, while most Bermudans are living from day to day and are trying to live a life with dignity, despite the unprecedented cost of living challenges, the continued inflationary pressures, unemployment and underemployment, and a diminishing sense of hope. Mr. Speaker, let's face it, the Progressive Labour Party has been the government for over 20 years, and the people of Bermuda are tired of having the One Bermuda Alliance blamed for the current government's inadequacies and woes. Mr. Speaker, I began this response by stating that the buffer, the equity Bermudians gained over its 400 years of facing challenges and overcoming them through sheer grit, determination, and innovation is gone. It has been decimated. The time has come for the government to acknowledge that they've failed Bermudians and honestly accept they've played a significant role in fostering the challenges currently faced by our island and our people. It's time for them to show real leadership and create a better future for Bermuda and develop some real solutions. They must stop kicking the proverbial can down the road for difficult national issues. It is time to have a government where maintaining and consolidating power is not the national priority. We need a government that embraces community involvement, that includes getting input from local and international business, that's listening to the hardworking men and women of this country, that means taking into consideration the lives of seniors and students. We have a hard road ahead of us, but collectively, we can face those challenges and come out of the other side of it with success. We've done it before, we can do it again. But to do that, this government must steer the country in the right direction, where we can all be confident in our leadership, our economy, our safety, and our peace. We must link arms and all march in the same direction. We cannot afford one more minute of a government that continues to fail her people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Opposition Leader. Excuse me. Opposition Leader, before you, I dismiss you over this one, how's that? Before you take your seat,